It's The Conversation on TYT. I'm Michael Shure. Thanks for watching. We are days away from the New York primary, a primary that was moved, was canceled, sort of, and then is now finally going to be held on the 23rd of June. And that means there are primaries all over the state. But we go to New York City now. We welcome Isaiah James, who's challenging a sitting member of Congress, Yvette Clarke, in the 9th District of New York, Brooklyn primarily. Isaiah, thanks for coming in. This is the big day. It's coming. And how do you feel? We'll start there.
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I feel good. I mean, my campaign, my team has worked their behinds off to get us to where we are now. Everything had to shift because of the coronavirus and the pandemic. But, you know, I just got off the phone with my campaign manager literally about 30 minutes ago, and we've called over 100,000 voters, and we got another 50,000 we're trying to call before this Tuesday. So we're working. Even though it's behind the scenes, we're working.
Yeah, and behind the scenes is sort of the only way you can work, which makes this year even more difficult for a challenger, but difficult for anybody running for office. And we see it from the presidential on down. Let's talk about your motivation for running. I mean, it seems like the time is perfect for Isaiah James. You were a Black Lives Matter activist. You were in the military as well. You see laid bare in front of us right now many of the problems that you addressed in your life. And though you are young, you've seen a lot of it on both sides. What is it that makes you think that it's time for you and time for Yvette Clarke not to be in Congress?
Like you said, the times of the day, the situation that we're in right now in this country calls for so much more than feckless corporate leadership. I mean, we're seeing it play out on the streets every day. And as you said, I'm 33 years old, but I've spent 8 years, 2 months, 29 days in the military. I'm a BLM activist. More importantly, I'm a Black man in America. So I've seen this my entire life. Racism is nothing new to me, but it's now being filmed more, so the eyes of the nation have finally turned to the plight of Black people and people of color. But our times demand so much more. We've been talking about equity and equality for hundreds of years in this country. And finally, we are on a precipice for which candidates like me, it's time for us to step up. Because what we've been doing, this last 100, 200-year experiment, has absolutely not been working, as is evident by the situation we're in today.
A lot of people, they will be your colleagues should you win, think that we definitely need tweaking, don't think that massive change is in order. But there are a lot of people running for office like you and a lot of supporters of people like your candidacy, and I should say other candidacies as well, who say that, no, we need massive change in America. What would you be looking to do in the first days of 2021 after you're sworn in?
Good question. So incrementalism is not the way we need right now. Incrementalism, half-hearted measures, you know what that gets us? That gets us the 3/5 clause. They said I was literally half a person as a Black man. That gets us separate but equal. That gets us segregated classrooms and segregated buildings throughout the South that my mother grew up in. So incrementalism is not the way. We need bold reformational change. My first days in office, I would introduce a bill that defunds the police, that ends our 1033 program, which allows police officers to buy surplus military equipment. That I would introduce a bill that ends qualified immunity for police officers. I would also introduce a housing bill that deals with the ravages that people of color and Black people in my community and poor people and working people have been dealing with. Because coronavirus, believe it or not, it did not cause these problems, but it ripped the scab off a festering wound that is income inequality, that is housing insecurity, that is racial injustice that has been in our society since this country was founded.
And define for me what defunding the police means to you as a candidate. Not necessarily. I mean, it could be the exact same answer, but I think, you know, when you speak about your chosen profession now, which is politics, you have to address it in different ways. But what does it mean to you to defund the police?
Great question. Just a little bit of correction. I'm never going to be in politics. Politics is backroom deals. I'm running to be a public servant. I've served the public my whole life, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm never running to be a politician playing politics, number one. Number two, defunding the police looks like to me no federal dollars, absolutely no federal dollars going to any police agency around this country. That saves billions of dollars that they get. Two, again, ending the 1033 program, which funnels billions of dollars worth of money and equipment and surveillance equipment to police forces. That's number two. That money Number three, can be used for more mental health services. That money can be used to add more beds to hospitals for folks who need it. That money can be used for after-school programs and diversionary programs and drug treatment programs. That's what that means. It also means ending our racist war on drugs, which has systematically targeted Black people and people of color in this country. It also means when we talk about police, we have to be specific and general. We're not just talking about the police you see riding around in your neighborhood. We're talking about state-sanctioned police too. That's ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's Department of Homeland Security, that's all these alphabet agencies that use surveillance and technology to put their boot basically on the neck of working people and people of color. So defunding the police is a massive project, but we need to do it in this country.
And it seems like the wind is certainly at the sails of doing that. And I should clarify that I don't think of politicians. I've covered them for a very, very long time, and I don't think it's a derisive term. I actually think it's a good calling, and I think that everyone who goes there, every candidate I've ever interviewed said, "Well, I'm not a politician. I'm not going to be doing those sorts of things." But it's part of what has to be done. So too is incrementalism, and fighting incrementalism is something that hasn't been done enough. So I think that's impressive as well. But I don't mean it as a term of derision to say that you're in politics. I think it's actually a noble calling personally. I want to talk a little bit about this notion of New York right now. I mean, there are a lot of sitting members of Congress, Democrats, who are getting challenged right now. And this does not happen. It's actually not ordinary that it happens at all. But you look from Elliot Engel to Gerald Nadler, you look at Carolyn Maloney, you look at your race, Yvette Clarke, and there are others that I'm missing right now. These are members of Congress who are being challenged because of incrementalism, I would say. What do you feel in terms of being part of a movement in that way?
I mean, I'm honored to be a part of that movement. You know, we have to be the change that we want to see in this country. Like I said before, whatever we have been doing to get us to where we are is not going to be enough to get us to where we need to be tomorrow. Incrementalism doesn't work. Imagine if during slavery, we've had incrementalism. It didn't work. We had to fight a war to end the practice of slavery. Jim Crow, incrementalism didn't work. It gave us separate facilities and separate everything. It didn't work. We had to march and demand to have our rights and our humanity recognized. Right now in this country, the rich are richer than they have ever been, and the poor are poorer than they have ever been. Incrementalism is not going to solve the problems that we are facing right now. We need bold reformational change. I'm proud and honored to be a part of that movement because the greatest tree that you can plant is one whose shade that you will never sit in. I am where I am today because somebody somewhere who didn't even know me sacrificed. They sat at those lunch counters, they marched, they got bit by those dogs and got their skin ripped off by those water hoses. And that's why I'm a candidate for Congress today. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to fight for the future generation, for my children and grandchildren, and some kids that I don't even know. Like Bernie Sanders said, are you willing to fight for somebody you don't know? This is a hard task. It's arduous. The road is long. But nobody's born on the top of Mount Everest. We get there one step at a time.
Yeah, I'm never going to get to Everest, by the way. But yes, I like that. I think that's inspiring stuff. And I think also you have already, as a member of the military, fought for people you don't know. You've fought for everyone who's watching this in the United States. So I think that's an important distinction to make. Tell me a little bit about an Yvette Clarke voter who has said, you know what? I've voted for Yvette Clarke. Perhaps even you have voted for Yvette Clarke, Isaiah. But tell me about that type of voter who says, but this time I'm going to come to you. What they've said to you that's made that decision happen.
They have actually spoken to me. They've talked to me. They see that the times demand more. They say, you know what? Yvette Clarke is an empty shell. She's never here. We need somebody who's going to be representative of the people. We don't need somebody who's been in politics for 30 years. We need somebody fresh and young and new who has the same lived experiences as everybody else. I talk about student loans because I have them. I talk about healthcare because my wife has a pre-existing condition and I'm disabled. I talk about ending the military-industrial complex because I've been there and seen it up close. And I talk about criminal justice reform because as a 6'8" Black man, I know what it's like to look like the suspect when you walk out of the front door in the morning. People are so hungry for somebody genuine who actually cares and will fight for them, and not the Fortune 500 corporations. Somebody who's going to fight for the fortuneless 40 million.
This idea of getting to Congress and wanting to make change. You've seen someone like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the other members of that class go there, but also realize that they have to play the game the way the game is played. That means you're going to have Speaker Pelosi, you're going to have Leader Hoyer, you're going to have Leader Clyburn there. How do you see working with a structure that exists, but also being adamant about the things you want to get done? Before we get out, I want to hear you talk about that.
When we vote for the lesser of two evils, all we do is embolden evil either way. We're never going to change anything until we get a critical mass of progressives and fighters in Congress. So AOC and the Rashida Tlaibs and the Ilhans, they're a small segment right now. It's going to take more of us to get there. I don't want to work within the framework of a system that's corrupt, a system that pads the pockets of the rich and the powerful. If Republicans can shut down the government because they don't like the black guy in office, Democrats should be able to stand up and voice our values and not vote for any bill that's going to help keep the rich rich. So my thing is integrity. I'm going to have integrity from the day I step in the halls of Congress. I'm going to fight for people in my community, and I won't vote for anything that helps the rich get richer.
Isaiah, thank you for the time. Give me quickly your website if people want to learn more about you. Tell me what the website is.
It's Isaiah for Congress, ISIAHFOR Congress.com. All the same social media.
Good luck to you on primary day. Thanks for taking the time to come on.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.